In this video, we're going to start with looking at money, which is the first topic in Unit 8 about the financial sector. So to start us off, what are financial assets? They are things of value that are abstract or intangible, and typically we'd say they are contracts of some sort. So one way to think about it would be like through examples. So examples would be stocks, bonds, and to some extent we'd say real estate, even though that's not really not a great example since it's land. Money would be another one, would be another good example of it. And money comes in different forms, and we'll kind of look at that here in a moment. So stocks are shares of ownership in a company, and they entitle the owner to the company's profits. And we call that share a dividend, your divided piece of the profits. And then we're going to look at bonds. Bonds are loans with a typically it's a fixed schedule, and the way that they of repaying them, we call this a term. And the way that bonds are a little bit different from loans, bonds, you repay the principal at the end of the term rather than a little throughout. So normally, like with a loan, like a mortgage loan, you would pay a little bit of the principal with interest back every month. But with a bond, you just pay the interest every single month, and then at the end you get the principal back, or you repay the full principal. Money is anything used to transact that fulfills the three functions of money. And so money is what money does. Money is what money does. And so we're going to look at three functions of money here. The first is the idea of unit of account. It's how we measure value. So we would say that a useful way to think about oh, excuse me. It's how we measure the value. Sorry, I had a little cough there. How we measure value. So it's the idea of how much is something worth. When we use money to say that, oh, that car is worth $12,000, we're assessing how much it's worth. We're using money as unit of account. We can also use money as a store of value, and that would be money being used to keep its purchasing power. So it's saying like, I have $4,000 in my checking account, or I have $40,000 in my retirement account. You're keeping money in those things in order to store its value for later use. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly, is medium of exchange. This is money being used to buy and sell, to transact. And that's how we commonly think about money. Money would need to do all three of these things to be considered money. So if you have an idea for something that would be good money, it has to do all three. Fiat money versus commodity money. So there's kind of two types of money out there. Commodity money is money with some other valuable purpose, which would be like, say, examples, gold or silver, or whiskey, which was used on the American frontier. There's tons of them out there. Hides or pelts. Those would be something where they have some other valuable purpose, but they're often used as money. And then fiat money is money essentially where the government has made it so that it has value. So in other words, there's no other real use or value in the money except for its use as money. Then we have a diagram showing what's included in MB, M0, M1, and M2. So I'm going to switch over to look at the diagram. We're going to draw a picture here. And the first part of our picture is going to be MB, and it's going to be over here. So monetary base is what this is called. And what we would say is in monetary base is two things. So we have currency in circulation. So that would be money that's out and about in your wallet and things like that, cash in circulation. And we actually call that M0. So we've kind of taken care of two things here, but monetary base also includes bank reserves. Bank reserves. And the reason that we break out monetary base is because it's actually the money that directly can be controlled by a central bank, because a central bank could actually change how much currency in circulation there is, and they can change how much banks keep in their reserves by using open market operations. Then we're going to look at the next category, which is M1. And M1 is all of the currency in circulation. So we can see it's kind of an overlapping Venn diagram. And checking accounts. Checking accounts. And so that would be money that you can quickly convert into currency in circulation. And then we've got an additional measure called M2. And M2 includes all of the M0 and the M1, but it also includes savings accounts. And there's different forms of savings accounts out there, but in general, we'll just kind of say, leave it at that, savings accounts. That's M2. And so that's less liquid because you only get certain numbers of withdrawals and deposits, or it's actually withdrawals that you can have every month, because it's easier to keep the money supply more stable. So when we talk about different measures of the money supply, normally questions that ask you about like expanding the money supply or making it smaller are usually referring to M1. But if your exam gets really particular about it, this allows you to kind of tell the difference. So I'm going to write off to the side a little bit here of what's in each one. Monetary base is reserves plus M0. M0 is equal to currency in circulation. M1 is equal to M0 plus checking. And M2 is equal to M1 plus savings. Okay, so then the last part of today, which is about money, is about if Wei and Lu deposit and withdraw money from checking and savings accounts. So very quickly here, if Wei deposits $100 in cash into his checking account, thinking about how much do the following change? Well, monetary base goes down by 100 because the amount of money that's in circulation, right, decreases. But at the very same time, and this is going to be a little bit wonky, I'm going to change my answer here, that money goes into bank reserves, assuming that nothing else kind of happens to it, right? So there's no change because the currency in circulation just immediately joined the bank reserves. M0 does go down by 100. That was kind of mixing myself up here a little bit, so we can see it's tricky. And that's because the money from the currency is no longer in that part of the box. It's actually over in bank reserves. Now, M1 is where things get a little wonky, right? The money not only went into bank reserves because he deposited it into his checking account, but also they deposited it into their checking account, so it gets added to the M1 side. Now, here's where it's a little wonky. It was already in M1, right? It was in the M0 part of M1, so it just moved over and became part of the other part of M1, so there's no change here. And then again with M2, he moved, or she moved, the currency in circulation from M0 to the checking account. But the overall size of M2 didn't change, right? We just moved money from one spot to another, so there's no change there. Now, if Lou withdraws $100 in cash from his savings account, right? So moving money from M2 down to M0, how much do the following change? Well, MB, right? This is where it can get a little wonky. Well, let's assume that bank had it in bank reserves. So the money went from bank reserves into currency in circulation. Well, so MB didn't really change. Again, no change there. M0, though, right? We went from M2, it was over here in this part of M2, into this part. And so now M0 is bigger. It's embiggened by 100, right? Embiggened by 100. And now the part, because we moved it from the savings account over to currency, the part that we define as M1 is also bigger by 100. But the overall size of M2 didn't change because it's still in M2. It's still currency. So you could see how this could get a little tricky on an AP test. But hopefully this helps you. I'll see you next time.